Hail cheaters! Welcome to the Always Cheating Podcast. My name is Josh. I'm here with Brandon. Brandon's back after 2 weeks away. Welcome, Brandon. How are you?
Good to be back in the saddle. Big ups to Dave for filling in, and big ups to you, Josh, where you just proved who needs a co-host. You can just go solo.
Yeah, the feedback was great. It was first good pod you've done in years. FPL the way it's meant to be listened to. I mean, really wild stuff, you know.
Yeah,
but
football is back.
Yeah, but I was listening, guys. You know, so.
Who in solo? Who released their first solo project? Was it John or Paul? I'm trying to figure out where I'm falling in the sort of Beatles pecking order here.
I feel like John did release something with Yoko while the band was still going. I mean, you know, Paul did that solo album that has like the Maybe I'm Amazed, like McCartney, you know?
Yeah, sure.
Bowl of cherries in the back or whatever. And that one was like, came up basically at the same time as Let It Be. And like the Beatles were really ticked. It was like, you know, it's interesting. I read this book called The McCartney Legacy because I've always been more of a McCartney guy. I've got it behind me here somewhere. It's like this, it's this really fun read. And I've always been more of a McCartney guy. And reading this, I'm like, like maybe he kind of was the jerk. Like McCartney kind of did break up the Beatles because he threw a Josh Landon style fit, and then like wouldn't get over it. Like everyone who's known me for a long time, all my friends know that I periodically just lose my mind about something.
But if you watch, was the documentary on Disney called Get Back? Is that what it was called? Mm-hmm. What wonderful documentary. Whether about the Beatles or whatever, it's a great documentary about work and how difficult it is to do a project, particularly do a project with other creative minds. Yeah. And watching Get Back, it was like every meeting, Paul was just kind of like, guys, can we just like write some songs and record some music? Yeah. And he's dealing with all this BS from all the other members of the band. So I definitely doing this podcast.
Much like this pod, it's been 10 great years, very intense. You know, we'll see where it goes.
Well, it's good to be back. I'm seeing the chat on the YouTube light up. Dave says, nice tan, Brandon. Yes, fantastic.
Are you tan? I don't see it. No, you don't get really tan.
Yeah. So I spent a week in India and then in Madrid, and I was telling you, Josh, fun to go to Madrid the 1 week of the year where it's like sub 50 degrees Fahrenheit. So, but it was a great trip, and I really I should have just totally unplugged from FPL. I don't know if you want to catch up on my Game Week 24 score thus far, but
well, like, why don't you tell everybody we went on your trip real quick? I mean, you know, we got time. Super Bowl is not for 2 hours.
Sure, the pod can be as long as we want. I had a moment in India where I thought I was just going to start cataloging all of the football shirts that I saw. Yeah. The first one was I saw a kid on the back of a moped wearing a Bayern Munich Harry Kane jersey, and then it was just I started seeing everywhere I looked. Like FPL legends, nay washouts from Kane to Hazard to Ozil. Yeah, like in India, it feels like they're not getting the kits of the players who just signed contracts. They're getting all the kits of the players who signed contracts like 10 years ago.
You know, honestly, at my kid's school, I have a third grader. They're all wearing like Ronaldo Real Madrid kits. And they're not wearing his like UAE kit or whatever. Yeah. Like it's all is there a star problem in the Premier League, Brendan? I don't know why Mo Salah is not. What is it? I mean, because in some ways, like for the and we will get into actual FPL in like 10 seconds, I promise. But what is it about the star power of those two, right? I know it's marketing to a certain degree. Sure. And they won a bunch of Champions Leagues. It's not like it wasn't earned, but
there's so much to unpack with the Salah one because he's Egyptian, and there are all sorts of geopolitical problems around the world that can stand in the way of marketing a player like that.
That's true. I was going to say you wouldn't think it would matter in America, but America is currently at war with everybody. It
Sure.
appears, Brandon.
Yeah, totally.
Quite unfortunately for me and you, on the,
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I have never had as many passport checks as I have had.
I bet, yeah.
Even coming back into Canada, it was insane. It was like Fort Knox.
Yeah.
Whales of Bitcoin on YouTube says Brandon looks more Spanish than he did before.
Ooh,
so
interesting.
So in Madrid, it was very. I just assumed it was going to be all Real all the time.
Yep.
And I bumped into a couple of Real Madrid stores. Of course, I saw the Trump Plaza of Madrid, which was the CR7 hotel. This is this very sort of ornate looking hotel.
Yeah.
And nothing says luxury like CR7, which I was just like,
do you have a big takeaway? Because I've been wanting to. I've never been to Spain actually, and I really want to go soon. And did you have any big takeaways from Madrid when you were there? Your first time there?
My first time in Spain and my first time in Madrid. It felt a lot like Paris, very cosmopolitan, very urban, but still imbued with this like sort of je ne sais quoi of European culture, like cafe life, that sort of a thing.
Yeah.
But one of my main takeaways is the Spanish people are amazing. Their level of patience is unreal.
Yeah.
So, to compare it again to Paris, you go into a Parisian cafe and you speak terrible French. There is a certain air of annoyance, and and my wife actually speaks fluent French, so we kind of have like a skeleton key to Paris. And we do not speak Spanish. Any place we went, we were really struggling to communicate through Spanish, but the level of patience and breathing room that they gave you, and they were just happy to sort of like work with you through that process.
That's really sweet to hear. Mexico City, where I went a year and a half ago or so, was a little different, and I think it was probably just because they don't have as much. Mexico City has become a very hot tourist destination for people in America, but I don't like the word isn't necessarily out in Mexico City. So I felt like there was a lot of people who were like sort of uncomprehending at our and we have a little bit of Spanish. Like it's hard to grow up in the United States and not have a little bit of Spanish, right? It's like it's almost a required class, growing up in school and but yeah. So but anyway, it's a great language. Well, I want to go soon. Well, let's get into FPL now. We could go you and I can go down this road separately. We haven't seen each other in like 2 weeks, so we're like we want to just talk, But yeah, let's talk about game week 24 so far. We have one more match to go. It's this Wednesday. We've got Everton hosting Liverpool. We don't know yet if Trent is going to play or not. I was leaning towards thinking he would play. Now I'm not as sure, mostly because Connor Bradley didn't play today. And that makes me feel like that might be like a little bit of an insurance policy. Like, let's just not risk it. Right. Because, if he's if Trent can't play, we can start Bradley. So maybe we get like a couple of bench minutes from Trent. I don't know. But how was your because you were traveling when all of the news of game week 25 broke, and it was kind of chaotic.
I was laying in bed taking a little nap in India when all the double game week news broke, which then sort of like flooded into assistant managership strategy. Prior to, it was just easy for me. It was Watkins to Gakpo, triple captain Salah.
Yep.
And then probably I was going to keep Chris Wood and roll a couple of transfers. But instead, I thought it was on Our Blue Sky. You put it pretty succinctly about just the number of matches that you could get from the assistant managership, 5, if Liverpool beat Spurs. And I just found that was insanely compelling, coupled with the curiosity of the fixtures that Salah had as a triple captain.
Exactly. Then, I think that's been lost now, right? Because there was not a more informed team in the Premier League than Bournemouth, right? Going into that fixture. Now, it doesn't take much for Salah to deliver, but I mean, he didn't have like an amazing game exactly. He scored a pen, and then he had a beautiful shot. I think it was outside the box, and listen, I mean, that's how it goes sometimes. But it wasn't like he had a dominant performance, right? It was just
So we'll see how it goes against Everton. But it was like every sort of like tweak that I made was the wrong one.
Right.
I ended up holding Watkins for the prospect of the Villa double, which we're getting in game week 25, so that's good.
Yeah.
However, Watkins got a 1-pointer and now he's flagged, and he wasn't on the team sheet during the FA Cup today for Villa, so we'll see what happens there.
Yep.
I brought in Vissa instead of an Everton striker. Got rid of Chris Wood for his hat trick.
That was a tough one. You weren't the only one, but that was a tough one. I don't know if I talked about that a lot on last week's pod, but that was brutal because I woke up to it and I was like, like I'm already looking at a red arrow this week without Wood. And then, but at least I didn't drop him, which many.
So I'm on a pretty sizable red arrow right now. I'm down to 248K, which of course still got to be pretty happy with that as a platform heading into the end of the season. And still, like, I don't want to underestimate the power of the assistant manager chip with Slot. Even if he gets a good haul against Everton, Slot does, he could this chip could still send us to the moon in a really positive way over the next couple of game weeks too. So I don't want to totally write this off as like a huge, like, I didn't fully optimize.
Yeah, well, it's also it's 10 versus 16, right? And this chip is still active for a double game week next week without having to use the chips, right? So that was the original strategy, and just to get into that, so. This has been news, I guess, for a couple of pods now, but just as a reminder, we have a double game week in 25. That has now been confirmed. The reason we have a double game week is because Liverpool and Newcastle advanced to the League Cup final, and that'll be in game week 29. And so because Liverpool especially have a lot of European commitments, they decided to move up their double, basically, like the because they won't be able to play the weekend of the 29th. They're now playing that in what is game week 25, right? So the upcoming game week. I feel like I explained that in the most complicated way, but basically they play twice in 25, and the team they play twice is Villa. So Villa now has a double as well. So Liverpool's double is Wolves and Villa at home. Or excuse me, Wolves at home, Villa away. And then Villa's double is Ipswich at home, Liverpool at home. So an interesting double. I think the Ipswich one makes the Villa match, or makes Villa, appealing. But as we'll get to in a minute, there are a lot of question marks and injury news with Villa that make things complicated. With Liverpool, it's just kind of an unusual one because it's a back-to-back double game week. Practically everybody who's really playing the game seriously right now has 3 Liverpool players, right? And so it's kind of hard to...
Or you have 2 plus Arne Slot.
Or 2 plus Slot, right? Either way, though, right? I guess
that is 3 players.
It amounts to 3, right? And so you kind of don't have anything to do in that spot. So you can really zero in on Liverpool. But I think there are some interesting questions about what to do, like... which I want to get to in a second before we kind of catch up on everything that's happened over the last few days. But I think a big question for me is what to do with Isak, right? Do I want to drop him? Right? They play Man City away. It's Man City have not been defensively strong of late, as we all know, but.
Seems like a great match for Isak, doesn't it?
In many ways, it could be. In many ways, it's a very easy move to Watkins, right? For a double for 2 matches at home, along with the fact that Newcastle will blank in 29. So there's sort of you can kind of get out ahead of that a little bit.
Yeah.
Though that it may not necessarily matter if you're going to free hit in 29, but that's making things
just like so. What fixtures Isak has between City and the game week 29 blank would be Forest, tough defense. Okay. Liverpool at Anfield.
It's another tough one. Yeah.
And then West Ham also away. West Ham, good fixture, but it's in a way. So it's a mixed bag for Isak, though, of course, you just can't necessarily bet against a player's form. And Chris Wood is a perfect example, and I think it's pretty fair to compare Isak and Wood as far as fantasy assets right now, and they're fixture proof in many ways.
Yeah, and I think I think that exactly. I mean, it's Wood has just become this player that it's like we should just stop the debate already, right? Like it's like the returns have been so consistent that it's kind of silly that we've been kicking around what to do with him all season. And at some point we have to just face it. Like it's just, if you just haven't owned him, like basically the entire season, it's a game week killer. Just, every couple of weeks.
You have to get him and play him every week. Cause I've had him. Remember you started the season with him, so you're way ahead of it.
Yep.
And,
way ahead of it.
And then I've had
the record show.
I've had him for, at least I've gotten a couple of goals from him, but I've either benched him for returns, not captained him against Southampton, which was obvious, or sold him ahead of a hat trick. So he's just been really tricky.
Yeah. And Isak Isak didn't start the season super hot, but he's been incredible the last 10 or 12 weeks. So, so at the moment, I guess, if I don't receive any, and I guess we're talking about it already, so there's no point in like teasing it to later discussion. But at the moment, unless we get really positive news about Watkins, like he trains from Wednesday on, right? Mm-hmm. And he looks amazing. And Emery comes out and says that Watkins should be fine for this weekend, right? Like a lot of things are going to have to happen, for me to feel good about it. And the thing that makes it even trickier, Brandon, I think it's quite a tricky game week given all the kind of flagged players. Is that we have a Friday deadline for game week 25. Brighton host Chelsea on Friday afternoon. So we're going to have to get our decisions made early. Sometimes that's a good thing, right? It's better than like spending 3 or 4 hours on a Friday night just kicking around every possible move. And then everything you decide on is worse than what you instinctively would have done. Like
just keep it simple, stupid sort of mentality with the Friday deadline sometimes.
Yeah, exactly. So, FA Cup was this weekend. I have just a couple of quick notes. Konsa left that match with an injury for Villa, so we'll see what the news is there. But they're pretty banged up defensively already, so it could be tricky.
They are. I missed a lot of Premier League action during the last 2 weeks, but I did catch the Villa Spurs match, and Villa looked amazing. I mean, it is the Morgan Rogers show right there now. Yeah. And when Asensio came on, get that down, he looked amazing. Rashford, kind of very like predictable, sort of like up and down. Their defense is kind of obviously a problem. Boubacar Kamara, though, I think is kind of a revelation, like as a makeshift center back. But yeah, without any natural pairing there, it could be an issue. So it's, I think that's the obvious thing to invest in if you don't do Watkins, or if you already have Watkins for the double, to just get a defender. But I mean, are you kind of then just hesitating there and saying maybe it's not worth a goalkeeper or defender?
Yeah, I mean, I don't have the money to just move Henderson to Martinez, which would maybe be the most entertaining move. Mm-hmm. Like, I haven't really had Debu all season. I could go like really extreme. Like I could consider dropping like Bruno Fernandes for, Ramsey or something like that. Yeah. I mean, Bruno's like the biggest bust in the game. Like just like,
you're disgusted.
I'm disgusted. I'm annoyed in my soul that I brought him in.
Yeah. And when you did it, I remember when you did it, we didn't talk about it on the podcast, and I just thought he has betrayed himself.
I know.
It was kind of like Primer. You remember that movie Primer about time travel? Like there was another version of you just trying to mess with you, and brought in Bruno.
I know. It's, I've been trying to keep a good attitude, but I do feel like I've lost my mojo a little bit, just on the Villa thing too, talking about the defense, maybe Debu comes in, he's a save monster as well. Yep.
We can't, we were talking about Isak and Newcastle blank in 29, Aston Villa also blank in 29. So you just have to keep that in mind too, as you think about loading up on Villa assets for this double, and thinking about where you stand with wild card, free transfers in the bank. What is your plan for that blank in 29?
Yeah, I'm leaning towards a free hit at the moment, but let's see how it all kind of shakes out, right? Yeah. I mean, Liverpool and Villa will certainly blank that week, right? So if I bring in another player, I guess I only have 2 Liverpool right now because I've got the assistant manager on slot. So, but still, if I get another Villa player, which I'd like to find a way to do it, right? Then I'd have 4 players. But that's 4 game weeks away. And then Newcastle and Palace. I mean, I actually do have a Palace keeper. That's the only Palace player I have at the moment. And then I actually know
FPL Yellow Army in the chat says, "Don't sell Henderson, Josh. He's got that dog in him."
Oh yeah, well he's been better of late. Admittedly, he doesn't get any saves, but I'll take those 6 points all the time.
Sure, they've been good.
Yeah, he's just how it goes, right? That's why you don't want to move your keepers around too much. Because by the end of the season,
right.
The top 5 guys tend to be the top 5 guys, and
yeah.
But I think that Newcastle and Palace will most likely blank. Ben Crellin puts that at like 80% likelihood to happen, right? So
the FPL site already has them blanked on their fixture ticker, so I think it's
Crellin,
a done deal.
He just today was like it's not a lock. I don't know. So
okay.
I almost trust him more than the site. I don't know. Why wouldn't you? He's like, has he ever been wrong before?
Seamless rollout of the assistant manager chip, and suddenly my faith is restored on the FPL site.
Yeah, I wouldn't say seamless. I still think they should have given us that chip without having to pay for those players. You should, if you want to transfer to one, sure. But that first one should be free.
Yeah,
that's what I think.
That's fair. That's fair.
That's fair.
Okay, so yeah, maybe Villa is sort of the blank in 29 feels like tomorrow's problem as far as we're concerned.
Yeah.
And I think I agree with that. Like, we should have plenty of transfers with which to deal with that, if not just play the free hit. As is also prognosticated by Ben Crellin and others. The doubles near the end of the season aren't going to be so monster as seasons past. So wild carding, free hitting into a big double, probably not as necessary as or optimal.
Exactly. And you can still, I still have my wild card, I think, as do you. So, you could also wild card before 30, before 34 or even, or I guess before 33, right?
Yeah.
It's a little. In some ways, I'm relieved to be back to a kind of cleaner version of fantasy where we just don't have. One extra team doubling, like that to me is kind of, we've had that forever, right? But in a random game week. But I think it was the multiple teams doubling and blanking all of the time, which we've had the last few years. I actually think it sort of reduced the amount of strategy in the game, because in some ways you were always zeroed in on one particular transfer, right? Like, got to get a player from X club or whatever. And then suddenly 18 of the clubs don't matter, right? Because you're kind of focused in. And, as a one-off or, every now and then, I think it's fine. And like you said, the assistant manager has added a wrinkle that actually has ultimately made things more interesting, because that is the other option, right? It's like, well, do you want to double up on or triple up on a Liverpool, or do you want to double up and have the manager or whatever, right? And so, I think I will admit it's gone better than I expected. I still don't. I find it hard to follow the points and how it's scored. I know it's not that complicated, but by the end of it, I didn't really know how many points Slot had. I was like, okay, I think he's doing, I was like, I know they've won by a couple of goals and they kept a clean sheet. But I was like, when he got 10, I was like, okay, great. I had no idea what I was going to get here. So,
right.
I don't know.
Yeah, totally. I'm still not. I'm at the point where I'm just like, I don't care how these points tabulated. I'll just whatever it tells me I got. I'll take. That's fine. Thank you. It's a double-digit return.
Yeah. So with the final match on Wednesday, what do you want out of that match? What's your hope for?
Well, the smallest grace I want from the FPL gods is a Mykolenko start. Mm-hmm. He's got a knock, and he wasn't rested. He was on the injury list for the Everton's FA Cup match. And Moyes said, he felt something in his calf, I think it was, so they didn't want to risk him.
Yeah, I saw that.
I just given sort of the tone of that messaging, you would say the hugely important match for Moyes, Everton are playing for pride. Now they're staying up. This is good. That's happy. They really want to put their best foot forward in the Merseyside derby. So I think Moyes will just be protecting his first team for that fixture. So I think I get a start from him. And that's just kind of at the smallest, I just want points. 1 to 2 to 3. I'll take them all. And then I would prefer to see Everton not score any goals, because I don't have any of their attacking players. Maybe Mykolenko would get an assist or something like that. And I don't know, the Salah thing, Where is the sort of the knife's edge there with triple captainers versus where we are? Do I want to see a hat trick from Salah?
No.
Would that be bad?
No. Honestly, a Salah blank is by far the best outcome for you and I.
I don't want Trent to start. That's what I want the most.
Yeah.
I don't want Trent to start because I have Allison in goal and I don't have Trent. Yeah. And I think that would be huge for me because if Trent does start, then that could be very bad.
I would say the thing I want more than anything else, I guess, would be a Branthwaite return. That would, in terms of just the things that would help me the most. Like, so a Branthwaite goal and clean sheet would probably help me even more than a win from like Slot as my, assistant manager. So, like a 1-0 Everton win with a Branthwaite goal. That also makes the Premier League title chase more interesting. So let's go with that, Brandon.
Okay.
And but I also have, I've got Salah and Trent and Slot. So and Jai, who looked like he was going to be just the biggest flop of all, but now with the 8 points, I'm feeling like, okay, that kind of worked. Like I kind of got away with it there.
Yeah, totally. Yeah. I mean, your logic was correct, and just like bring in somebody where just a slip by a defender, a mistake, or just a beautiful goal which he scored. Right. It's just like you kind of put yourself in the right frame for that success.
Yeah, and Beto getting 2 instead was just kind of one of the, I don't know. I would not have been on the Beto train. Congratulations to everybody who was. So all right, well, I think that covers, what's happened over the weekend. I mean, there is some news about teams that will blank and won't blank in 33 and 35, but I don't want to get into all that. I think we've done enough kind of prognosticating about future, fixtures. So let's do a quick shout out, Brandon, to our Patreon supporters. Thank you to Oliver Badye. I think he's a returning patron, Brandon, but thank you to Oliver. We had like 3 last week too. So the Patreons continue to flow in even as the season hits the final turn, Brandon. Like if this were the Masters, it's Saturday, Brandon. It's moving day at the Always Cheating podcast. And so thank you to Oliver. And if you support the podcast, you can get an extra podcast each week, as well as the Discord. I thought the Discord, I think I've mentioned this last week, but it really shined when the double game week was kind of surprise announced right before the deadline a couple of days ago. And I really gained a lot from chatting with people on there. So it's a great community. If you go to patreon.com/alwayscheating, you can take part in it. I know, Brennan, the next time we do a pod, we'll have to do an update on our second half Premier League, non-Premier League kit contest. I'm curious where we
must see where people stand in getting that non-Premier League kit contest. I also wanted to shout out our friend Amar, who lives in the Netherlands. He travels to the States often, and he set up a meetup. So a klaxon to all of our listeners, Patreon or not. There is an FPL meetup in Boston on Wednesday, February 26th. There's a midweek kickoff there. You're right smack dab in the middle of game week 27. There's a murderer's row of fixtures that Wednesday. Brentford host Everton, Manchester United, Ipswich, Forest host Arsenal, Spurs, City, and then Liverpool, Newcastle are the late kickoff. So if in the Boston area, Wednesday, February 26th, meet up with Amar and all of our friends at O'Keefe's at 911 Boylston Street.
I love it. And that is... I guess that's game week 27.
That's right, game week 27. What will our moods be like then? Will we be higher or lower?
It's hard to say. It's always good to assume lower, honestly. All right. Well,
under promise, over deliver.
Yeah, exactly. All right. So game week 25 kicks off on Friday, Valentine's Day, Brandon. A Valentine's Day fixture. Brighton, Chelsea. It's a rematch of this weekend's FA Cup fixture, which was won by Brighton. Kind of interesting. Like they've been a real up and down team this season. Yeah. I mean, they just got annihilated by Forest, and then
embarrassing.
But then they beat like a first strength. Like Palmer played all 90 minutes in that FA Cup match.
That's the story. What's going on? Okay, the story with Brighton is who the heck knows? They're completely schizophrenic.
Yeah.
What's going on with Chelsea at the moment, though, is like they're just like all the air is out of that balloon. In Cuckoo's balloon, he like reverse goal celebrated it.
Yeah.
There's no air left.
Yeah, deflated. Yeah,
Mm-hmm,
exactly.
that's right. Deflategate, the Chelsea story.
Yeah, I know. It's a weird. They're actually. It's probably they're playing each other, Brandon, because they're two teams that are hard to make sense of this season, and they play each other now. So because of the double, it's probably hard to. Actually, let's start in an unusual place, which is that if you were looking to make a transfer this week that didn't involve one of the double game weeks, is there a really appealing fixture? Honestly,
it's Bournemouth, right? Bournemouth are away. Southampton are Bournemouth are the ascendant team, right? And they have just so many interesting, affordable guys to pick from.
Yeah, I think you're right, and it's true. I think Liverpool honestly got quite lucky to come away from that match with a clean sheet. I think it was Semenyo that hit the crossbar early, and could have been a totally different match. Mm-hmm. So I don't know. I might go. The thing is that the Villa. The second best fixture is probably Villa hosting Ipswich, and they double. So it probably is just a little bit more fun to go that route.
Yeah.
I guess if you look ahead to the fixtures to follow, Bournemouth after playing away to Southampton, host Wolves, away to Brighton, so not bad, and then Villa host Chelsea and away to Palace. So. From an attacking perspective, I think hosting Chelsea is fine. Maybe it makes if I was already kind of disinclined to get a defender, and now I feel that way even more so, right?
Sure.
So, yeah,
blind.
Yeah. So we I think we swiftly eliminated the non-double game week teams. And if you want to go back, I think it was 2 weeks ago on the pod with Dave, we actually ran through virtually every Bournemouth midfielder and discussed the pros and cons. And I think basically everything we talked about there still holds true. Semenyo did score a pen this weekend for whatever that's worth. You in Bournemouth's FA Cup win. It'd be fun to see them win the FA Cup.
And Django did not start in that match. Just the two other main assets that people are targeting. Utara.
Right. So as far as the teams that double, we got Liverpool, and as we were talking about a few minutes ago, most people probably have either two Liverpool players and slot, or three Liverpool players. So clearly, you're probably, unless Trent is confirmed out, which we'll know. Well, we should have a lot more information ahead of game week 25, right? Because if he doesn't play at all in the second leg of the fixture, doesn't even make the squad, then we can start getting worried about because the really appealing fixture, of course, is this initial home fixture with Wolves. So if he's a doubt, then I would definitely consider moving him on. He eats up a ton of money, and it certainly could be more appealing just to move off of him.
Would you go for like straight to Connor Bradley in that situation? Or is that the risk because Trent could then be back the next game?
Yeah, I would say, I think that would be too much. Then you might be in a position of going back and forth. But I think Konate is where I would go. Cheaper, has shown a more attacking potential than I feel like he'd shown in previous seasons. I haven't compared XG year over year, but it feels like he's been a little more involved in the Liverpool attack the last handful of game weeks. So I would probably go with him. I don't have Gakpo still, so that would be another move to consider. You could go Trent to Dean, right, and use that money to bring in Gakpo.
That's right. That's a good call. I like it.
Yeah, as far as kind of off the radar Liverpool assets that I don't know that people don't already have. What about Szoboszlai? Szoboszlai. Yeah, I merged all those syllables into one big syllable.
Yeah, sure. So we're in Jordan Henderson territory with Szoboszlai, where it's he can get involved in the attack, and he's the cheapest of the lot as far as potential attacking assets for Liverpool. I feel like this conversation happens so frequently, right? Where you're just well, how can I get interesting with the obvious instead of just getting Salah, Gakpo, and a Liverpool defender? Yeah. This is my general feeling on Szoboszlai is you're kind of rolling the dice there, and you could do well, or you could ultimately end up with a transfer out in the next couple of weeks.
Yeah, it's a fun punt. Like if you just want to be different, like there are people who just want to be different, right? And I think if viewed through that lens, like I think he's got quite a high ceiling, just as a kind of like there could just be a random match where a couple of his outside the box shots go in.
Oh,
right?
yeah. You're looking at game week 23, it's 13 points. Game week 17, it's 17 points. He has 3 double-digit returns on the season. So that, but then just think about that again, is what I said. 3 across 24 fantasy game weeks. Yeah. And the rest of the time, you're looking at a mix of 1, 2, and 3 pointers. So feast or famine there.
Yeah, exactly. So I wouldn't necessarily be looking for him, but I do think he's kind of a fun option. And what about you? I mean, are there any other defenders in Liverpool outside of? I mean, obviously Van Dijk would be the other one.
I feel like Van Dijk for me would be the one. You know, you talk about Konate's attacking potential. I still think Van Dijk surpasses him.
Yep.
And he's just having an elite season. So he feels like you still get to save money if you're moving Trent to him. And that's a win. So and there's risk with Robertson's position, the risk we've already talked about with the right fullback. So it's between Konate and Van Dijk. I'll go for the Rolls Royce. You can go for the just like the family car, the grocery getter,
the Volks, like a nice Volkswagen.
He's kind of a Golf or something like that. A Passat.
I think it would only be to fund another move, right? Like that would be the appeal of Konate. I mean, like I certainly wouldn't mind taking a -4 this week potentially. So I think that's kind of where we are with Liverpool. Let's just wait on Trent, but everything else is pretty solid. I mean, a slot, everyone should be healthy for Wednesday. That's for sure. I mean, slot basically only, I guess Luis Diaz is the only starter who's like, and did Allison even start? I can't remember. But
no, Kelleher was in goal. They lost to Plymouth. Obvious.
Yeah, impressive.
But it was Diaz, Jota, and Chiesa up front. And Darwin came on late in the match to try to salvage it, but the big hitters weren't even on the bench. The subs were guys I've never heard of, and then Darwin.
I kind of respect that he was willing to do that. That he was willing to just be like
Plymouth are god awful. I think Slot is pretty shocked that his C team couldn't get it done.
Yeah, but I but still, like we're like, like I don't know. I feel like a lot of times they end up getting kind of like a little nervous and they just play. But who cares? Right? They just made another cup final. Like how many cup finals you need to be in? Right?
They're going to win the Premier League. It's fine. No one will remember this.
Exactly. It's fine. All right. So that brings us to Villa, which I do think is a trickier proposition. Right. So Villa. Obviously, if healthy, Ollie Watkins would be an excellent pick. Yeah. He's an incredibly, outside of a kind of rough start of the season, an incredibly over several years now in the Premier League and the second half of this season too, an incredibly consistent score with high level upside. Right, high floor, high ceiling, kind of everything you want in some ways in a fantasy player, especially considering his price is not does not annihilate you. Yeah. So Watkins is appealing, but we just don't know if he's going to be ready at all. It didn't make the 18 today. It's just hard to say, right? I mean, these muscle injuries,
there's the latest quote, which came from just 2 days ago. We're looking at a Friday quote from Emery's press conference. Each day is important how he's feeling, but for Sunday, talking about the FA Cup where he didn't make the team sheet, I think he's not going to be available tomorrow. I think he is not going to train as well because he will need more days to recover. Hopefully for next week, he will be available. So super cryptic, but it leaves the door pretty wide open for Watkins to be fully fit for 25.
Okay. So we'll see. At the moment, as we said at the top of the pod, I would not move Isak off of him. However, Njai to Watkins, if I could free up the money. Actually, let me see if I can. Let's do a real-time pretend.
Yeah, let's do it. How are we going to make this deal?
Yeah, let's see. Okay, so let's say I've got Trent. Let's say Trent is injured. Okay, he's done. Okay, so let's say I drop him. and I bring in Dean. Okay.
Yep.
4.6 million frees up a lot of cash. That leaves
Love
me
it.
2.9, and Jai. So that gives me 8.4 million.
Ooh, I think you're
Watkins
just
is
shy.
I'm not just shy. I'm 0.5 million shy.
Yeah. Well, you downgrade Slot to
there you go.
Yeah, some dirtbag coach.
Yeah. So I guess if I could find a 4.1 million defender, I don't. I mean, if Bogard,
O'Shea.
Well, yeah, but I'm thinking like on Villa.
Oh,
like,
right, for Villa.
Yeah, I guess if we thought that Bogard was going to play both of these, maybe.
Doubt it.
Yeah, that's tricky.
He doesn't really get minutes for Villa, at least in the league.
Yeah, but with the injuries, like maybe, I don't know. So there are some possibilities. We'll see how we feel. How I'm talking about myself in the first person plural there for some reason, but we'll see how I feel.
So if you look beyond Watkins at the attacking assets, the January window is kind of totally it's total chaos for this game week 25 picking of a Villa attacking player, because as I said, Asensio looked great, but like, is he fully in tune with the system and minutes fit to get an immediate start?
Yep.
Rashford was an interesting sub appearance against Spurs, where he floated from the right to the left. It was kind of like Emery said, float from one side to the next, and we'll see where we see you fit best. I think he actually looked really good on the left, sort of combining with Luka Dean. So I could see him starting on the left, and even though Ramsey also had a pretty good game. Which means he would displace Ramsey. Even though you got Bailey, who also played really well. There's just so much.
Yeah, and Watkins, who has been saving all of his best matches for non-Premier League ties.
Yeah,
I think he's getting. He now has 3 goals and an assist in his last 2 non-Premier League matches.
Well, I don't know. Can we just talk for a minute about Morgan Rogers? I mean, this is just it. It feels like it's stating the obvious, but not. Did I
say Bailey? I meant Rogers. Sorry, Rogers is the one who's been reserving his best returns for. Just because you said Bailey, I think I got that word in my head. But yeah, sure. Rogers has been amazing outside of the Premier League. Right, had a brace in the Champions League final match. Had a golden assist today. So if you don't have Rogers, I think he's the top of the list.
You have to have him. And he's undroppable. It is insane to me how he starts every single match, whether it's Europe, Cup, League. He starts every match and typically plays the full 90. And I think this is contributing to his yellow card problem, where most of his yellow cards are coming from him just making like tired challenges in the midfield in the 80th minute, because he's just been covering so much turf through the whole match. So it's just an interesting season that he's having, but a glorious one. And he could easily be the breakout player of game week 25, or the high scoring player of game week 25.
So I would say if you're prioritizing, I think Rogers is the safest pick and like a lot of upside. I do think that Ramsey is worth considering, though. I mean, especially if Watkins is out, I think that there's a lot of potential there. What makes him extra appealing, I think, if you're looking to kind of make a move in your leagues, is he's only 0.3% owned. I mean, he's effectively not owned in fantasy at the moment, right? Mm-hmm. And he's only 5.4 million midfielder, so there's lots of it's not that hard to get him, right? And so it just kind of depends on who you'd want to drop to fund that move. But I certainly don't mind it. So I think that's another one.
You think Ramsey would play in the 9 then? Is that what you were kind of thinking?
Well, I just think he'd start. I don't know if he would necessarily. I mean, like I don't know if he would necessarily even play in the 9, but I just think that he has some potential. And if there's any doubt about Watkins, that he's a slightly safer pick. Right.
Okay.
It's a little bit of both, I guess. He's safer, and he's going to be a nice, he's just going to be like a slightly different option to have in your squad than maybe where other people are going to go.
Yeah, I do like him as a different option. I don't know if he's safer because Watkins is out, because he's just part of that winger rotation that I was talking about. And,
right. That's true.
They started like Malen, the Dutch guy.
Yeah, Daniel Malen.
Never plays up top in Watkins' position in the FA Cup.
Yeah.
So Wonder how Emery would
That's true.
treat
I
that
mean, and
situation.
Ramsey is a difficult. I mean, yeah, just looking at his. I mean, he had a stretch there of some consistent starts, but then he was pulled at halftime in the Wolves match. Yeah, so yeah, it's pretty tricky, I'd say. And then defensively, Cash is out, Pau Torres is out, Mings is most likely out. Konsa now stronged out for the weekend, so or at least a doubt whether it's a strong doubt or not. So that leaves. Maybe you consider just not having any, right? Because Ipswich can certainly score goals. And honestly, if I were betting, I would. A clean sheet does not seem like a super likely possibility in either match, from my perspective, for Villa.
Yeah. It's just, the question is, with all of the strategy blanks, little doubles coming up, what's more valuable? Chasing a clean sheet double for Villa in game week 25 or banking a transfer?
Well, you have more transfers than me, right? I have one transfer. So for me,
it's
I
valuable.
Would probably
it's valuable, right?
Yeah, but if with one transfer, I might as well. I think spending a transfer in a double game week is always worth it. Yeah. Like I think like it's worth the punt because again, the upside is tremendous if you just get lucky, right? Like maybe Ipswich just have a really off day, would not be crazy. They're not a very good. I mean, they're fine, but they're not. I mean, like they're bottom of the table, right? I mean, like near the bottom of the table. So like it wouldn't be impossible if they kept a clean sheet, and then maybe Dean gets an attacking return, and then he gets 2 points in the next match, and suddenly you're looking at 14 points or something, from Lucas Dean at 4.6 million.
So I mean, you're basically signaling here that Lucas Dean is the pick.
Well, I think he's the best pick of the defender bunch.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, do you?
I don't disagree with you at all. Yeah. No. Yeah. I thought he played really well in the FA Cup match, and he's kind of like in and out. He was weirdly in and out of that squad for a while, and he's taking these minutes exceptionally well recently, I would say. So I think he's a safe pick.
Yeah, I think he's a safe pick too. So, all right. Well, let's. Any other Villa thoughts before we kind of move on from there? In some ways, it feels pretty straightforward. There's kind of one decent.
Yeah.
The forward situation is a wait and see. The midfield has one clear option in Rodgers, and then a bunch of punts, like full on punts. And then the defense, you have one option in Dean, and then defensively, I think it would be fine to go Martinez too. Like. Not exciting to make a defensive transfer, but fine.
Yeah, and just the thing that I think has plagued us with Aston Villa is how they cannot win or be competitive in the Premier League if they have played in the Champions League midweek. Then the Champions League is off. They're on a break, Ross style. Until mid-March. So this is their focus. You're getting all of their attention in the Premier League for this double in game week 25. So in terms of them being fully focused, fully rested, and fit for these matches, that's what we want to see.
All right. Well, let's see here. What else do we want to? Oh, so what about so where are your plane transfers? Like, how are you looking at? How are you looking at this game week?
I'm looking at this game week. I can put my team up on the screen here.
Well, how many transfers do you have, by the way?
I currently have 2 free transfers. Okay. Let's see here. Okay. I'm on the screen here. So I have 2 free transfers, and I'm set up with Watkins is, just fingers crossed that he's fit. He gets the vice captaincy. We're talking about Rodgers being the pick of them all, but just Watkins probably on pens, even though he is terrible at them. Far worse than Yuri Tielemans, of course. There just feels like more upside with Watkins than there is with Rodgers, all things considered, fantasy-wise. So I like that. So I guess I'm fully optimized with Liverpool, given I have the assistant managership activated. Al Becker, Ted Danson in goal there.
A great TV show just turned into a great way to play fantasy.
So I have nothing to do with Liverpool. The one thing I would consider doing would be Lewis Hall. The clean sheets have like totally dried up for Newcastle, and the fixtures, which we ran through with talking with Isak, I think they look better attacking wise for Isak than they do for Lewis Hall in clean sheets. I would definitely consider Hall to a Villa defender just to complete the double game week.
I like that, especially if Mikolenko's a doubt.
Yeah,
or doesn't play at midweek.
Yeah, for sure. And then I could, if Mikolenko was fit, then I would probably drop Robinson, God help me, to the bench for his inevitable 5-pointer.
That's a tricky one. I feel like I would start Robinson, and if you brought in a Villa defender, I would probably play him over Mikolenko. Maybe it just depends on, I don't know. I feel like the way Palace are scoring goals, though, I feel like I don't know. Mateta would destroy that Mikolenko clean sheet, I feel like. And
fair enough. I don't disagree with you. I think it's very, very close there. Everton are just so funny with their clean sheets. Like when they decide to show up and be a fortress. So it's definitely a gamble.
I've already netted one clean sheet, from Branthwaite. So,
did you drop Gabrielle this past week?
Yeah, I did. It was to free up money for the Arn slot, which I actually kind of hate that I did. It was like, I just was not like, you know what? I was just so locked into what I wanted to do that when I realized I needed 1.5 million to fund the move, I was like, oh my God. And, because Arsenal are playing Man City anyway, and Arsenal's defenders have been so disappointing, but it was honestly quite a big gamble, because if Arsenal had beat Newcastle and it advanced to the cup final, I would be in a horrible position right now. So it was a bit of a gamble, but it did pay off. I'm actually up on that transfer already. So, we'll see how it works out long term.
Yeah, Johan Wissa is the guy for me. You dropped Gabrielle, you hate it. I picked up Wissa and I already hate it. It's just like the Brentford double up. This is disgusting.
Because you did I saw you I don't know what time it was in India when you were doing this, but I felt like
it was like in the middle of the day. Doing FPL in India is a breeze, because you get to do all your thinking throughout the day, and the matches either happen in the late evening or when you're asleep.
That's funny. All right. So, that'll make sense. God, there's almost part of me that's like, should you just start a mod over Palmer? I know that sounds insane, but I don't know. Spurs are going to concede a bunch of goals in that game. I
would start a mod over Vissa, maybe. I just feel like Vissa. If just thinking about the sheer game theory of it all, if Wissa goes off and I've benched him, it's not going to hurt me as much as Palmer going off.
Right. No, I know. I was being mildly provocative there, I suppose, but it's I guess it was more of a cut at Palmer, who I feel like has been kind of.
I hope you're listening, Cole.
I know he has been. I feel like, I don't know how many blanks has it been. Let's see. No, I none really. I guess he had 2 in a row. But he has returns in 3 of the last 5, double-digit returns in two of the last 5. So he's fine. Okay, I don't know why does it feel like Palmer has been less fun this season? Is it just because now he's just a?
It's because everybody has him, and there's so much at stake because they just. Jumped his price up so much. When he was cheap, it sort of felt like you were getting away with something. It was almost like porno or something like that. And now it's you're reading FPL for the articles having Cole Palmer now.
Yeah. All right. Well, I kind of agree with that. I feel like I don't know. Maybe next season. It'll probably be the same price next season. He's like KDB now. He's in the KDB zone, right?
Yeah, that's right.
I don't think he goes up that much more. Well, I talked about my transfers already, so let's do kind of one final thing here, Brandon, which is the assistant manager chip. There are some managers who were on Moyes or played the triple captain on Salah, right? The sensible move, perhaps the one that you and I should have done. But let's see how things play out. But if you decided that you wanted to play the assistant manager chip now,
Yeah, now.
Now.
Why not? Yeah.
Okay.
Why
Yeah,
miss
so,
out while we're all having fun? Here, I'm gonna like put a little
yeah.
like advertising bed under this. While we're all having fun playing the assistant managership, you're at home
Yep.
asking, what about me?
What about Brandon? So
Yeah.
here is the next 3 weeks from the Forever in Progress fan. I think they have been
It looks
redesigning
exactly the same as
the
it's
Scout.
always.
The Scout members page has been has been in beta testing for I think 3 full years now.
Sure.
It's the world's longest beta test. So
Yeah, it's a beta test,
yeah,
basically.
beta. It's a beta. Yeah, beta test. So it is. So this is if you were to start with the triple or with the system manager chip now, clearly you would most likely look at well, I guess the question is do we think it's worth it to play the assistant manager chip now? And question 2 would be, I like I started with A and then with 2. I didn't go A to B. I went A to 2. Bullet number 1 is should you play it now? Bullet number 2 is if so, who should you play it on? So
yeah.
I think if I were doing it now, in some ways it depends on how many transfers you have, right? Because if you have like extra transfers and you don't just have one transfer, I think if I were playing it now, I think it would be fine to do because I think that that Liverpool have a really good chance of winning both of their matches in this double, given how Villa have been just a little beaten down by the Champions League and some of their injuries that they have, and Liverpool just kind of have the bit between their teeth right now, right? It feels like they're doing a really nice job of holding on to their lead in the Premier League. So I think they most likely win both those matches, which puts you in a great spot with slot. And then if you have multiple transfers, then you can move off of them in game week 26, right? And when they play away to Man City, and you could, I think, make a move then to a kind of high upside option, right? Like maybe it's like I don't know, like Fulham hosting Crystal Palace. It kind of depends on, I guess, ideally what you'd want would be, I mean, if you want to go like really punty, you could consider like Leicester hosting Brentford or something like that, right? Where it's like you would get lots of points for an upset. I don't know, like just looking at like 25 or excuse me, looking at game week 26, is there like a fixture that stands out to you as like kind of a great giant killing fixture? Pulling them up here.
Giant killing West Ham hosting Arsenal.
That could be one.
That could be one.
Yeah, I think Arsenal actually hosts West Ham though, I think. So it's
right, I see. Yeah, it's like I got it reversed there.
I just sorted by difficulty here. Yeah.
Yep. I frankly think Emery is an interesting pick for game week 25 because the giant killing could be Villa defeating Liverpool. Now, the odds, I agree with you. The odds are certainly in Liverpool's favor there, but
sure. That's why it's a giant killing.
Yeah, right. And Villa famously done this to Arsenal many times in the last couple of years, and yeah, if they overcome some of their injuries ahead of that Liverpool fixture, I think that would be a huge opportunity for an Emery assistant manager chip, and then combine that with the Ipswich match, and then Chelsea and Palace. You wouldn't have to move Emery, I think, in that case.
Yeah.
But
that's true. You might be right about that.
So there is some upside there. I guess maybe by that logic, I kind of put Slot and Emery at equal sort of fitting. Mm-hmm. The other way I would think about it is, or want to discuss it is, you're in a good position if you played triple captain on Mo in game week 24, and now you just get to like double down and bring in assistant manager in game week 25. Beyond that, though, I wonder how much there's just going to be FOMO. People think, oh, well, everyone play the assistant manager chip, everyone in air quotes, in game week 24 because of the double announcements. I better trigger mine in 25 so I can be one of the cool kids. Yeah. Is it necessary to do that?
I don't think it's necessary, but I will say, given some of the things that we talked about earlier, like the free hit in 29, the possible wild card ahead of the doubles and things like that, it may be that you don't want to necessarily have 3 game weeks locked up with the assistant manager chip later on, right? That would be, because that is the situation. You know, like you and I, for example, can't triple captain Salah now, right? Because our system manager chip is active. And so there could be, I think the argument would be just, you're not going to use a chip in 26 or 27. So it might be a good spot for it.
What about Pep Guardiola in game week 26? Again, talking about Liverpool. So it is Man City. Are they at Anfield or away?
I think they're hosting. Let's see. They're hosting Liverpool.
Yeah. So why not? You'd get the table bump. If City win that match, and then City have Spurs in game week 27, which will just that'll be like a comedy game, comedy of errors for sure. But I think you could get a good bang from Pep Guardiola in game weeks 26 and 27.
I like it. I will say personally that, because I don't see a lot of upside at holding slot for that Man City match in 26. I probably will move slot, and I'm probably going to use as an opportunity to take a big swing. And I think for me, Leicester hosting Brentford is probably the most appealing fixture in terms of just Leicester can occasionally knock out one of these, like a win against someone they shouldn't. They'll be at home. It's obviously an important game if they want to have any chance of staying up. And Brentford just occasionally have a stinker in them, right? Just like a random match where you're just like, God, how did they lose this one, right? And that happens every 5 or 6 weeks for them. So I think that one has a lot of appeal, because if they were able to pull off like a 2-0 win or something like that, I think you would net like 20 points, and so that could be appealing.
Yeah, I like that.
All right. Well,
we've got to have fun with this, Chip. We've got to test it. We have to test the boundaries of the assistant manager.
Exactly. Chip. It's been more fun than I was expecting. I will admit that. So
FPL Yellow Army wants to shout McKenna versus Spurs in game week 26. And Ipswich also fighting for their lives, and
that is a good one. Especially Ipswich at home. Yeah, are they like? I don't even know how much of like a table bonus you get for that. That's the only problem.
I'll pull up the Premier League table right now. Are they 5? It's 5 table places, right?
Yeah, but it's like even more the further it is, right? So it's like
okay. So Ipswich currently 19th and Tottenham in 14th. So that gets you there.
So you get some. All right, so. Okay, that's not a bad one either. I hadn't really looked too much at 26 yet, but I think go ahead and activate it if you want. I don't see a lot of downside to not pulling the trigger. I think you made a good argument for Villa. It's just like it's sort of what do you want, right? Like Villa. I think I'm convinced. I actually think if I were not the more I think about it, the more I think you are right. Just go with Villa, because you get a really good chance of a win over Ipswich, and then a really good chance of a big upset over.
And you don't have to get another Villa guy.
Yeah, that's true too. You just it kind of solves your coverage problem. That one's not bad. I wouldn't move slot though. I mean, where you and I are, I don't see that as being worth the transfer. All right, well, let's wrap things up there then, Brandon. Thanks everyone for listening. Glad to have you back. I thought that was like an hour flew by. Good conversation.
Good to be fun. Back.
Yeah. Let's wrap things up there. Brendan, do you want to thank our producer patrons?
Absolutely. And visit patreon.com/alwayscheating if you want to say thanks and get more FPL content in return, including an extra ad-free podcast each week and access to our Discord where there's lots of amazing chat. And of course, we tease that second half Premier League, non-Premier League kit contest that's going. We'll have updates for all of our supporters on our upcoming Patreon pod this Thursday. And our producers, as always, big thanks to Mike DePietro, Trevor Ingerson, Dave Wagner, Lodahl. Thanks, Dave, for filling in. Our buddy Chris Howell, Andy Penn, Nick Wright, Lazarus Yanos, Jesse Halstead, Brian Chin, Babas Kuhn, Blair Jacobson, Todd Byerly, Andy Portlock, Dan Parsons, Terrence O'Donnell, Kerry Swanson, Jefferson Turner, as he does it, Francis Moore, Sam Shower, Craig Jackson, Caleb Robbie, Brian Clark, Thomas Tislaw, Fro Jacobson, Gareth H. Shalin, F. Kadakia, Rishi Nigam, Noah and Louise, Travis Grant, Linus Vennerstrom, Matthew Skinner, Ben Coombs, Eric Kite, Rune Sandberg, James Murray Wood, James C., and James Holland unite to be the three Jims. And a big thanks to Scully, Craig at Total Mass Tutoring, and Francis. Man, rate, review, subscribe wherever you get podcasts. Follow us wherever you get social media. The website's alwayscheating.com. Josh, before we leave, what is your prediction for the Super Bowl? Most people will listen to this podcast after the Super Bowl is played. So with the risk of having egg on your face, what's going to happen?
Well, yeah, I mean, it's a close one. I think the favorites have moved back and forth a little bit. It's like a point either way in terms of the spread, like a 1.5 either way. So I don't know. I honestly, I think the Chiefs are have to be favored. I know that's kind of the boring answer maybe, but given the way that Xavier Worthy and Hollywood Brown have come on of late, Brandon, I know you're a big,
I've been talking about
you're a big Hollywood Brown guy. So I'm
going to be playing with the wildfires having just recently happened in his backyard.
That's true. He's inspired. Yeah, that's true. He's got all of Hollywood behind him, which I think is great. Sure. So I'll give them, I'll say Chiefs by 3.
All right, go Chiefs. Go Birds.
Yeah, go Birds. Yeah, go Birds. Exactly. All right. Talk to everybody soon. Bye.